Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in to another episode of Cube Outside the Box. Today we'll be looking at the new Dragon Shield Cube Shell. It's a very exciting product meant to hold cube packs. It's reusable, and the idea is that you put anywhere from 14 to 16 cards in here, pass them around for your draft. We're going to be comparing them to the long-standing Cubeamajigs available from the Cardamajigs website. Of course, please check the show notes for links to both products. We're going to do our best to do an in-depth review, an in-depth comparison, side by side of the two products. Let's go ahead and open this up. You can see that the Dragon Shell comes pre-assembled, so the shells are already put together. All you have to do is open up the package. They come 8 to a box. They come in 6 colors. You can see that in the links below when you go look at Dragon Shield's website. They've got a little tuck-in flap closure here. Pretty easy to use and feels quite secure. As you saw, it took a little effort for me to open it up. One of the nice things about this, there's no tuck-in flap on the bottom because they're pre-assembled because of the way they're constructed, so the cards will slide in and out pretty easily. So this slides in and out nicely. The Dragon Shield comes with exactly one variety of art. You can see on the front here the Dragon Shield logo, and then there's a little art on the back. So by contrast, Cubeamajigs come in packs of 25, although you can order in different increments. They come in no way assembled. They come in a flat condition. There's a little protective vinyl you got to pull off here. It's not super hard to do, but when you're doing 20 or 30 at a time, it does add a few minutes. And then you've got to pop them out and basically unfold them. Fold them into the shape that you want them to be. They've got little flaps both top and bottom to keep the cards from sliding out either side. One thing I've learned from doing a bunch of these, you got to really crease these edges here. You can see me doing it. And that will make sure that this flap stays nice and flat. Even when you pick it up, it's going to pop right back down. If you don't do that, you're going to see on the top here, it's pretty easy for it to not quite lay flat. But if you give it a nice little extra crease along the edges, it'll lay down flat for you. This has a 2-tab system here for closures. There's a square cutout, it's hard to see here, and a tab that goes up into the top, which is sufficient to hold it closed, honestly. That's more than enough. But you can tuck in the bottom one, and once you do that, they're pretty well sealed in there. It's probably just as difficult to open this as it is to open a regular pack of Magic cards, to be perfectly honest. The likelihood of it popping open on its own is basically zero. You can see there it takes some effort to pull it out. I did feel like that felt pretty weak when I first got them, but I actually found over time that it feels quite durable. I haven't had any issues with them popping, breaking, bending, anything like that. So we'll do a little size comparison here. Size is negligibly the same. We'll see later in the video that there is a size difference that matters when you're putting these into a box, but overall, very close to the same size in every way. So we're going to do a quick little test of what can fit into both of these products. So I'm starting here with some unsleeved cards. I'm using basic lands just because I had them at hand. My assumption would be if you're putting unsleeved cards, then you're probably putting in tokens or something like that. These are handy for holding tokens, especially if you've got a deck that uses a lot of tokens. You could use it for something like a sideboard, which obviously I think would be sleeved in most cases. So we started with 20 there. 20 swamps, the best basic land available in Magic. And then we added 10 more of the second best, forests. So now we're up to 30 cards. And now we're going to add some of the third best here. It's another 10 islands, which doesn't quite fit the traditional way. So we're going to go one at a time. Need a little clown car music for this one. Got to 39 there. We're going to do one more. And that's about as much as I'd want to fit in there. You can see one of them's kind of popping up. They do fit nicely. but I would not go beyond 40 unless they're cards you really don't care about. Even then, getting them all out, you know, they're going to be tight in there. So I would mark that at 40. Let's give it a whack with the Cubeamajigs, see what we can fit in there. Again, we're starting off with an optimistic 20 swamps. You can see right here, again, not just difficult to open by accident, but actually just difficult to open. They really sealed in there. Another 10 forests. Takes us up to 30 cards. No problem fitting those in there. Little room. Felt like they got caught for a second, but I think that was just the way I was holding it. So we got to about 38, where it got to the point where it was tight. Again, if they were tokens, something you don't care too much about, you could probably squeeze a couple more in there. But I would not push it with those. Seals up nicely. That bubbling is because of the aforementioned creasing you need to do. So those fit nicely in there. Now we're going to go ahead and do the same thing, and I'm going to go ahead and use single sleeve cards this time. So these are just magic cards from one of my cubes. They're single sleeved in a pretty old batch of KMCs. These are the KMCs that used to be really popular before the formula change. So again, not sure what was catching in there. I think it was just the angle going in. I started with 10. That should be a given, of course. So I've got another 10 cards here, which isn't quite going to fit easily. The rigid structure makes it hard to squeeze in up to max capacity. So we'll start with 5. 15 is a pretty common cube pack size. Some people like to do 14, some people do 15 or even 16. So that's no problem, as you can see here. So we did end up getting all 20 in there. We did manage to do that. And in fact, we can fit a bonus few. Got down to 21. I felt pretty optimistic, so I went ahead and did one more, 22. But again, that's quite tight, and I would not go beyond that 22 when packing a normal pack. It's going to be hard to get them out, and I'd be afraid of damaging them. So we'll do the same thing with the Cubeamajigs, single-sleeved KMCs. Going to go ahead and start with 10. Plenty of room, of course. Couldn't really make a product like this and only have it hold 10 cards. The window on the front of the Dragon Shields does make it a little bit easier to fit everything in at the get-go. So again, we cleared the 20 threshold there with no problem. I was pretty nervous about trying to squeeze that 21st card in. I think 20 is about the limit. Again, 21 if you don't care too much about the cards, but if that's the case, what are we even doing? Why are they in our cube? Now, one of my main cube is double sleeved. This is KMC Perfect Fits and Katana sleeves by Ultimate Guard. So, of course, different sleeve products will vary a little bit, but I think this is going to be a good indication of kind of a ballpark. So we got to 15 there, and then I just started adding them one at a time. I was getting a little nervous about that watery grave there, so I'd cap it around 18. Again, if you have a cube that you do packs of 19 or 20 and it's double sleeved, I would try one of these out with your particular sleeves before going too far into investing. We're going to do the same process here. So again, that's KMC Perfect Fits on the inside, and then Katana sleeves for the actual outside sleeve. Yeah, that Winota not for the first time, gave me trouble. So I would cap those around 16. I found that was pretty tight. I was nervous to try and add one more card. When it's not on camera, maybe you could squeeze one more, because I was sitting behind the camera for this. But I would honestly probably cap it at 16 for the Cubeamajig. So obviously there's a little bit of a size difference. We've seen that the Dragon Shield can accommodate a bit more. So this is a KMC, pretty generic 1000 box. I have kept cubes in this before. Right now it's just holding a bunch of my basic lands. And the Cubeamajigs fit. It is quite snug. I actually have another box like this that I keep my Uncube in. And I typically keep that pre-packed in Cubeamajigs. Because I pack those very specifically with contraptions. The Cubeamajigs fit is quite tight. The Dragon Shield unfortunately does not go in at all unless you go diagonal, which is not going to cut it. Now I didn't try it lengthwise, but I know from experience that that's a weird way to pack that box. If you've got a Quiver, again, I use a Quiver for one of my cubes. This is one of my cubes in here. I don't pre-pack it with Cubeamajigs, but I do sometimes like to pack it. I also keep my spare dice in that Cubeamajigs there. So we're going to see that you could very easily fit Cubeamajigs in here. I did not check how many Cubeamajigs fit, so if you'd like to know, leave me a comment or shoot me a message. All my contact info is below. I would love to go ahead and check that for you if you need to know that. Dragon Shields fit just lovely right in the Quiver, just like the Cubeamajigs. Quiver is a great product. I'm a big fan. It closes easily, plenty of clearance with those rounded edges for the Dragon Shield cube shell, as well as, like we saw, the Cubeamajigs. Comfortable fit. Now my main cube is in a Dex Protection Supreme Game Chest, trying to get the label in there. And again, I don't pre-pack it with Cubeamajigs, but I do like to pack the packs up before playing sometimes. And I, again, keep dice and some other things in a few spare Cubeamajigs. Cubeamajigs and Dragon Shells fit absolutely beautifully, no problem whatsoever. Again, did not check the number that you could fit in here because that would mean unpacking the whole cube, which I didn't think we wanted to see. But the lid closes nice and firm, plenty of room and clearance to close that in there. So like I said, you can keep spare mini dice in your Cubeamajigs. I've been doing that for a long time. You can keep exactly 35 in there, which is a little annoying because they typically come 36 to a box. So you're going to end up with a spare die, which I would recommend that you throw away and forget ever existed if you are a little OCD like I am, because when I think about it, it really bothers me. So we fit all 35 of those dice in here, no problem. I will say that this little window does make me concerned that the dice might spill out a little bit more readily. And then I wanted to see if we can actually fit one more row, because that would make all the difference, wouldn't it? Unfortunately, there's just not quite enough clearance to get that extra row of dice in there. So you're stuck at 35. Maybe you could get the 36 one in there, but I think it's going to damage the shell. So the top looked like it had a writing spot on it. So I went ahead and got a dry erase and a wet erase marker to test out whether or not you could write on the top and what would happen to the shell if you did so. So we're going to go ahead and start with this red. I think my camera colors are off because it looks a little orange from here, but it's an older red dry erase marker. Comes out quite lovely on that little gray strip. And I don't know if that's what that's intended for. Maybe that's just decoration, but it sure looked like a writing strip to me. Unfortunately, the dry erase does not come off. It's hard to tell, but I'm actually kind of scrubbing at it there. But even with scrubbing, it does not come off. It doesn't remove. So before I took any drastic measures, I went ahead and also tried the wet erase here. Just throw a little star on there. This is brown, so it doesn't show up as well on the camera, but up close it didn't look too bad. I think a wet erase would be fine. So this is a little bit of a damp napkin this time, and the wet erase came right off. So that's a nice feature that a wet erase appears to work on there no problem, but it does seem like a dry erase would be a little bit more permanent. I haven't tried using anything crazy like acetone or anything like that because I'm pretty sure that'll damage the product overall. But again, if you really want to know, hit me up in the comments. I'll see what I can do. Well, it's time for the painful part. We're going to do some stress testing on here. I've never tried this with my Cubeamajigs before. So I got in there and tried to pull at them and see if they would pop apart. I tried to get in there on the corner, kind of where there's like a natural bit of a seam. What I found, as you can see, is that the plastic here is quite stretchy, actually. If anything, rather than being brittle, which I originally thought it would be, it's very stretchy. So even pulling on that tab there, like I said, it's hard to see, but it did pretty minimal damage. If I had to use this, and I wasn't worried about this pack blending in with others so that it was like, you know, not marked, meaning if the cards inside were random enough that I wasn't worried about this one looking different, I would still go ahead and use this at this point. I would reform it, I would put cards in it, and I'd be confident that it'll seal up. So the dragon shield, I went after the top, and oh, that came right off. That took very little effort to peel that right off at the seam there. And then I went in after the main seam a little bit more, and that was a little bit harder to get, but again, with a pretty medium amount of effort. I mean, I have a pretty strong grip strength, but even so, I was able to pop this apart without really straining myself. And then from there, yeah, oh, that's brutal. So that kind of inspired me to go back and try a little bit harder here. So I really kind of went after that corner seam and really tried to get my hands in there. Once I got it started, it actually started to peel kind of diagonal across, like the plastic just started straight up ripping. So it wasn't even the seam, it was just brute strength at that point. Okay, so honestly, after that side by side, I don't think I can really recommend one of these products over the other. It really just depends on your usage and your preferences. The Cubeamajig has a wider variety of arts available. There's some amazing art from some really talented, really popular magic and wizards related artists out there. You can also just get a bunch of basic colors, and there's a whole wide variety of things you can get there. But there's a lot of different options available, and they definitely have the win on durability. It was really hard for me to pull this apart at the end there. On the other hand, the Dragon Shield only comes in a few different colors, but it has a little bit more of a capacity for cards in it, so it definitely holds a little bit more. If you're trying to do 18, 19 card packs, especially if you're double sleeved, the Dragon Shield's probably the way you gotta go. Just know that there's a little bit less durability. It only comes in a few colors, and nicely they are gonna come pre-constructed here so that you don't have to do quite as much setup work to get them going. So I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you enjoyed me tearing this stuff apart for you for the first time. If you have any questions about the products, you want to know anything at all, hit me up in the comments, shoot me a message. All my stuff's below, Twitter, Twitch, all that. I'd be more than happy to answer something to figure out how many of something fits, or I don't know if I want to tear apart any more of them, but if you have any kind of questions like that, let me know. In the meantime, please definitely go ahead and hit all the buttons, like, follow, subscribe, thumbs up, all that stuff. Just to give me that little bit of dopamine to keep me engaged in making this content. Follow me on Twitch for sure, because that's where most of my content is. YouTube is more of a side thing for me. And then if you are going to make any purchases, including Dragon Shield, which are available on TCG Player, I do have an affiliate link below. I would appreciate you sending that my way. In the meantime, like I said, hit me up on Twitter, and please stay safe, stay healthy, stay indoors, and I will see you on the next one.